Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today wanted to do my college football playoff prediction video heading into week 5. So last week I had was Michigan State, Ohio State, Baylor, and Georgia. So go ahead and start with my 4 outside. I'm gonna start giving you guys like the teams that are barely missing outside of my top 4. Just go ahead and start with number 1 Notre Dame, 2 UCLA, 3 Ole Miss, and 4 Florida State. So I think each of these teams have a pretty firm shot at contention right now. Florida State, I think they're the solid favorite right now to win the ACC. It really comes down to that Notre Dame-Clemson game this weekend. If Clemson wins, then obviously they insert themselves as the favorite. Now, if Notre Dame wins that game, then for the time being, it's hard to keep them out of the college football playoff. Also, UCLA, team that a lot of people say is good enough to be in, has the resume to be in, but they just don't want to put them in the college football playoff for some reason, and I kind of have the same mindset. So UCLA had a very impressive win last week. Obviously, they've got a decent resume so far. At the time when they beat BYU, they were a top 25 team. Granted, that BYU win doesn't look great right now after what Michigan did to them, but what UCLA did to Arizona last week was just dirty. They were able to just pick them apart. Was not expecting that big a win. But anyway, move on to Ole Miss. So Ole Miss right now is a solid top 3 team in my book, and also in the top 25. Well, I don't know. I'm not ready to put them inside the top 3. They're a solid top 3 team in most people's books, inside the rankings as well. But I still think that we have to see how good Bama actually is against a bunch of these top teams when they play Georgia this weekend. So I do think that Ole Miss is just outside. If they end up winning the SEC, going undefeated, obviously they're going to be in the playoff. No questions asked. But I think it's hard for a team like that to go through their entire SEC West schedule undefeated. They've got a ton of tough teams left to play. They still got to go through A&M, LSU. If Auburn can get any better, they still got to go through them. Mississippi State. There's still a lot of tough teams, let alone the SEC championship. So let's go ahead and get my college football playoff started. So start with number 1. I've got Ohio State, 2 Baylor, 3 Georgia, and 4 Michigan State. So same college football playoff as last week. I don't think anything changed the top 4 or 5 enough this weekend to shuffle it around. I think a lot of teams that are just outside prove themselves. Teams like TCU just, unless they can get some big wins under their belt, look a little bit weak right now, look a little bit far outside of the top 8 for college football playoff contention. But overall, I think that those teams are still the favorites, at least in my book. Now, let's go through them individually. Ohio State. So not really any tough tests coming up anytime soon. The Virginia Tech one doesn't look great for them anymore. After East Carolina was able to take care of them. So they do play Indiana this weekend, and I think it's just the biggest priority for Ohio State right now is to get the offense going, get Cardale Jones situated, start getting him to put up some numbers, get him comfortable, and see if the defense can start. I wouldn't even start, just continue playing good. Now, for me, it's been the same thing as always, or same thing as every week for Ohio State. It's going to come down to that Michigan State game week. If both teams can prove that they're legit, if they can both take care of their schedule, blowing out quite a few teams, then I think as long as the game's close, as long as both teams prove each other, especially since teams like Northwestern, Michigan, Iowa are proving that they're, proving that they're for real. Now, teams like Iowa, it's going to be hard to tell until conference play actually really gets through the meat of the schedule. They play Wisconsin this week, which is a big game for them. But Northwestern's proved they're legit. Michigan's starting to prove they're legit as well. Now, Michigan can be a tough game for both teams, as Michigan is probably both teams' biggest rival. So, like I said, both teams able to take care of games like that, then I think it'll be no problem. Big Ten's kind of proven to be deeper than a lot of people thought it would be. So, move on to Baylor. So just another weekend of taking care of business for Baylor. 70-17 win over Rice. Just hard to tell for Baylor. This is the toughest test they've had coming up, or that they've had so far coming up this weekend against Texas Tech. This game's going to prove a lot about Baylor. It's going to show. I think it's going to prove a lot about Texas Tech too, but also TCU. Now, I think this game against Texas Tech is going to show a lot of how TCU and Baylor are matching up right now. If Baylor can take care of this game, I know it's not a home game for either team. It's in Arlington, Texas, so obviously neither team really has a home field advantage. I think that it's going to be a good chance for each team to show the actual progress they've made, see if Baylor has actually declined any or if they're at the same point they were last year, and see if they can beat Texas Tech by a pretty big margin. And if they can, then I think that'll show that Baylor is in control of the Big 12 right now. Until some other team like West Virginia, OU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State steps up and starts beating teams by a firm amount, I think that Baylor is the clear favorite right now. You can look through each team's schedule. OU's been the popular dark horse out of the Big 12 now. At this point, I don't even think they're a dark horse. It's just a popular pick. I don't think that they're going to be able to beat Baylor at home. Baylor's at home. So I don't think they're going to be able to win that game. Baylor's had OU's number the last 2 years. Last year was just an absolute blowout. I think it'll be much of the same this year. I think the TCU-OU game is going to be close. I think OU has a winnable chance there. But I think that OU could have a 2-loss. I think it could be a lot like the 2013 season for OU. It could be a 1 or 2 loss regular season, but I don't think it'll be enough for them to get into the playoff. So Baylor is still the firm favorite out of the Big 12 for me. Move on to Georgia. So obviously Georgia, it all comes down to this Alabama game this weekend. If they can take care of Bama, then they show that they are the firm SEC East favorites, and if they can beat them by more than 7, I'd say it kind of shows that they're the firm SEC title favorites as well. Now, if they beat them by more than 7, then I think Georgia has a case for being top 3 in the country. Now, that's, speaking way ahead of time. They lose to Alabama, then for the time being, they're also put out of SEC title contention and college football playoff contention. Now, they'd probably have to win the SEC after that to be a 1-loss team in the playoff, but for the time being, Georgia actually is the favorite odds on this weekend, so I do think they're going to win. Do think it's going to be incredibly close. See if Georgia can manage to get through this game without pulling, the normal Georgia thing and just choking it away. So, last but not least, kind of talked about Michigan State earlier. I do think that Michigan State, for the time being, is still inside the top 4. Obviously, their win against Oregon is vastly discredited at this point. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I think that Oregon has a few internal problems, just, regarding things like defensive inexperience. Getting the quarterback situation. I think they're still an incredibly talented team, but I think it's going to be a slow season for them. So, that is my college football playoff predictions for the week. See how everything goes down this weekend. You got 2 big games that will influence the college football playoff, including Alabama and Georgia, and then Notre Dame and Clemson. So, big weekend inside college football. Conference play starts for a lot of people, and it should be a pretty entertaining weekend. So, that's pretty much it. See ya.